For thousands of years, humans didn't have pharmacies or painkillers, just plants. Some of those plants worked so well that they're still inside every hospital on Earth today, just renamed and rebranded. But the stories behind them are way darker than your science teacher ever told you. We're talking about a stolen patent, a painter slowly poisoned by his own medicine, and a single root that once sold for 250 times the price of gold. Let's count down 9 of them, starting with the one nobody saw coming. Let's start with number 9, Echinacea. Long before antibiotics even existed, the Plains tribes of North America were already using a spiky purple flower to treat snake bites, infected wounds, and even rabies. The Lakota, Pawnee, and Cheyenne called it the strongest medicine on the prairie, and they weren't exaggerating. Echinacea purpurea contains alkamides and polysaccharides that activate immune cells like macrophages and natural killer cells, which German immunologists Stimpel and Wagner first confirmed in a landmark 1984 study. But the story gets stranger. By the late 1800s, Echinacea had become the best-selling herbal medicine in the entire United States, prescribed by eclectic physicians for everything from blood poisoning to gangrene. However, when penicillin arrived in the 1940s, the pharmaceutical industry buried the plant almost overnight. Modern science is finally circling back. A 2014 Cochrane review covering 24 trials and 4,631 participants found that some Echinacea preparations modestly reduce cold incidence, though the effects vary widely between products. Germany still approves it for respiratory infections under their Commission E guidelines. The most fascinating detail, though, is the name itself. Echinacea comes from the Greek word for hedgehog because of the spiky seed cone in the middle of the flower. So a wild prairie weed once outsold every herbal remedy in America. But it's nowhere near the most respected ancient root on this list. Moving on to number 8, ashwagandha. The Sanskrit name literally translates to smell of horse, and that's not a typo. Ancient Indian healers genuinely believed the root could give you the strength of a stallion, which is why the Karaka Samhita, written between 100 BCE and 200 CE, prescribed it boiled in milk with ghee and honey for weeks at a time. But the real reason it's everywhere right now is what modern trials keep proving. A 2025 systematic review of 15 randomized controlled trials covering 873 participants found ashwagandha cut clinical anxiety scores by an average of 3.5 points on the Hamilton scale at the 8-week mark. A separate 2019 Indian trial led by Salve and colleagues showed that 600 milligrams a day for 60 days dropped serum cortisol by 27.9%. compared to placebo. However, what almost no Western viewer knows is wilder than the science. The word adaptogen wasn't coined by some Ayurvedic guru thousands of years ago. A Soviet pharmacologist named Nikolai Lazarev invented the term in 1947, more than 2,000 years after Indian healers had already documented exactly that effect. The global ashwagandha extract market hit roughly $770 million in 2024. Just remember, it isn't completely risk-free. Multiple liver injury case reports exist in the medical literature, and pregnant women should avoid it entirely. But the next plant has a legend even older than Ayurveda itself. At number 7, we have aloe vera. Egyptians called it the plant of immortality, and they meant it literally. The Ebers Papyrus from around 1550 BCE lists aloe among its sacred plant remedies, and Sumerian clay tablets from Nippur reference it as far back as 2100 BCE. According to Egyptian tradition, both Nefertiti and Cleopatra used aloe daily as a beauty ritual, though that part rests on legend rather than primary documents. The wilder story is what Aristotle reportedly told Alexander the Great. Greek tradition holds that Aristotle advised Alexander to conquer the island of Socotra around 333 BCE specifically to secure its aloe supply for treating his wounded soldiers. That makes aloe possibly the subject of one of the first recorded military pharmaceutical campaigns in human history. But does it actually work? A 2007 systematic review in the journal Burns, covering 371 patients across 4 trials, found aloe shortened burn healing time by nearly 9 days compared to control. A 2024 meta-analysis of 9 newer trials confirmed exactly the same pattern. The active compound is acemannan, a polysaccharide that genuinely accelerates skin repair, which is why a gel called Kerosene is FDA approved for veterinary wound healing today. However, the FDA banned oral aloe latex laxatives in 2002 over genuine cancer concerns. So the leaf gel is medicine, but the yellow latex inside the rind is something else entirely. Up next is a root that almost got people executed for digging in the wrong forest. Sitting at number 6 is ginseng. In ancient China, ginseng was crowned the king of all herbs, and the Sheneng Bencao Jing, compiled around the 1st century CE, listed it as the supreme upper-class tonic out of 365 plants. The Chinese name ren shen translates to manroot because mature ginseng often grows into a shape that looks unmistakably human. But the part of this story most videos completely miss is how insanely valuable wild ginseng actually became. Under the Kangxi Emperor of the Qing dynasty, an imperial monopoly declared in 1709 made unauthorized harvesting of wild Manchurian ginseng a capital offense. The penalty for digging up the wrong root was straight-up execution. Wild mountain ginseng routinely sold for more than its weight in pure silver. And in 2012, a 100-year-old wild Changbai mountain root, weighing just 30 grams, sold at auction for around $430,000 US. That's roughly 250 times the price of gold per gram for a single piece of plant matter. The science backs the legend too. A 2020 systematic review documented over 150 registered ginseng clinical trials with consistent effects on fatigue and erectile function. The active compounds are ginsenosides, triterpene saponins that exist almost nowhere else in nature. Just be careful if you're on blood thinners, because ginseng can reduce the effect of warfarin and clash dangerously with antidepressants. But the next plant on this list literally fueled the construction of the pyramids. Coming in at number 5 is garlic. You probably eat it every week, but you've almost certainly never heard what fueled the workers who built the Great Pyramid of Giza. The Greek historian Herodotus wrote in 440 BCE that an inscription on the pyramid recorded 1,600 silver talents spent on radishes, onions, and garlic for the laborers. The original Egyptian Ebers papyrus from 1550 BCE contains 22 separate garlic remedies for heart problems, headaches, and tumors. But the detail that almost nobody on YouTube mentions is wilder than the pyramids themselves. The world's first recorded labor strike happened in Egypt around 1170 BCE under Ramesses III, and one of the main triggers was that the tomb workers had their garlic rations withheld. They literally went on strike over garlic. Modern science backs the ancient instinct hard. A 2016 meta-analysis of 20 randomized trials covering 970 hypertensive patients found garlic preparations dropped systolic blood pressure by 8.7 millimeters of mercury and diastolic pressure by 6.1 millimeters, which is comparable to many first-line blood pressure drugs. The active compound is allicin, which only forms when raw garlic is crushed or chopped, releasing an enzyme called allinase. However, garlic also thins the blood, which means you should stop taking concentrated garlic supplements at least 1 week before any surgery. But the next plant inspired the biggest patent battle in the history of herbal medicine. Number 4 on the list is turmeric. Archaeologists found turmeric residue inside cooking pots near New Delhi, dating back to 2500 BCE, which makes it one of the oldest documented medicines on the entire planet. The Sushruta Samhita and Karaka Samhita prescribed it over 2,000 years ago for wound healing, food poisoning, and stubborn skin disease. The active compound curcumin makes up only about 3 to 5% of the dried root, and it has terrible oral absorption on its own. However, ancient Indian cooks figured out the fix 3,000 years before modern science caught up. Mixing turmeric with black pepper boosts curcumin absorption by roughly 2,000%, thanks to a compound called piperine, which was confirmed by a 1998 study in the journal Planta Medica. Modern trials keep validating the tradition. A 2021 meta-analysis of 16 randomized trials covering 1,810 knee osteoarthritis patients found turmeric extract cut joint pain with 12% fewer side effects than common NSAIDs. But the wildest chapter is legal, not medical. In 1995, the University of Mississippi Medical Center was granted a U.S. patent for using turmeric in wound healing. India's Council of Scientific and Industrial Research challenged that patent, dug up thousands of years of documented prior use, and in 1997, they won. That was the first time traditional knowledge ever defeated a U.S. patent, and it permanently changed international intellectual property law. Up next is a plant that can absolutely kill you, yet it saves lives every single day. Number 3 on this list is foxglove. This one's going to disturb you. Foxglove is so toxic that a single mouthful of the leaves can stop your heart. And yet for over 200 years, it's been one of the most prescribed cardiac drugs in modern medicine. In 1785, an English doctor named William Withering published a book titled An Account of the Foxglove, documenting 163 detailed cases of dropsy patients he treated with the plant over a full decade of careful observation. He had learned the original recipe from an old Shropshire woman who used a family blend of 20 different herbs, and Withering figured out foxglove was the one ingredient that actually mattered. That book is now considered one of the first true clinical trials in human history. The active compounds are cardiac glycosides called digoxin and digitoxin, and they work by blocking the sodium-potassium pump inside heart cells, which strengthens every single beat. But the strangest twist in this story involves Vincent van Gogh. He was being treated with digitalis by his doctor Paul Gachet, and digitalis toxicity causes a rare side effect called xanthopsia, which literally tints your vision yellow. Many art historians, including a 1981 paper published in the journal JAMA, argue this explains the dominant yellows in the Starry Night and sunflowers. Digoxin remains FDA approved today, and a 2024 trial called DIGIT-HF showed it cut heart failure deaths and hospitalizations. But there's an even older plant that quietly gave birth to modern pharmacology itself. Number 2 on this list is the opium poppy. Long before morphine ever existed, the Sumerians were already cultivating the opium poppy in Lower Mesopotamia around 3400 BCE. The Ebers Papyrus from 1550 BCE actually recommended poppy juice for quieting crying children, and Hippocrates himself prescribed it around 400 BCE. However, the moment that truly changed pharmaceutical history came around 1804, when a 20-year-old German pharmacist named Friedrich Serturner isolated a single chemical from raw opium and named it morphium, after Morpheus, the Greek god of dreams. Serturner tested it on himself and 3 teenage boys to prove the discovery. All 4 of them overdosed so badly that they had to be revived with vinegar. That isolation was the first time any plant alkaloid had ever been purified in human history, and it essentially birthed modern pharmacology overnight. Every painkiller that came after, including codeine, oxycodone, hydrocodone, methadone, and naloxone, traces directly back to this one flower. Morphine has been on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines since 1977. But the darkest chapter came in 1898. Bayer Pharmaceuticals chemically tweaked morphine into a brand new compound and marketed it to doctors as a non-addictive cough syrup, which physicians then prescribed to everyone, including young children. The product name was heroin. The United States didn't ban it until 1924. Today, over 80,000 Americans die every single year from opioid overdoses, and the entire story traces back to one flower in ancient Mesopotamia. And the #1 ancient medicinal plant of all time is willow bark. Mesopotamian clay tablets from 2000 BCE and the Egyptian Ebers papyrus both reference willow bark for inflammation and swelling. Hippocrates himself recommended willow leaf tea around 400 BCE to ease pain. However, the first true modern clinical study of any plant medicine in human history was a letter that Reverend Edward Stone wrote to the Royal Society of London on April 25, 1763, describing how powdered willow bark cured 50 fever patients over a 5-year period. The active compound is salicin, which your liver converts into salicylic acid. That same molecule was synthesized into pure acetylsalicylic acid by a biochemist named Felix Hoffmann in 1897, and the world simply called it aspirin. Today, aspirin is one of the most consumed drugs in human history, with tens of thousands of tons produced every single year. The famous 1989 Physicians' Health study, covering over 22,000 doctors, proved that low-dose aspirin cut first heart attacks by 44%. Sir John Vane won the 1982 Nobel Prize for showing exactly how aspirin works at the molecular level. But the twist almost nobody knows is hidden in the name itself. The word aspirin is actually a portmanteau. The letter A stands for acetyl. The spire comes from Spirea ulmaria, which is a completely different plant called meadowsweet, and IN is just a common drug name suffix. So technically, aspirin is named more after meadowsweet than after willow. A 4,000-year-old folk remedy quietly became the most consumed pill on planet Earth. And the truth all 9 of these plants reveal is this: every modern pharmacy started inside an ancient herbal garden. Aspirin came from a tree, morphine from a flower, digoxin from a weed, and acemanen from a desert plant. So the next time someone calls plant medicine fake, remember this video. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one.